Chapter 1. Beth. Monday night. Beth grips the steering wheel so tight her knuckles push white through her skin. She has a Prokofiev symphony blasting on the stereo, trying to drown out her thoughts and forget the evening. She can still smell his cologne on her clothes. He wore so much of it she almost couldn't breathe. Trying to impress Emily, of course. She grits her teeth, remembering the humiliation of watching her husband trip over himself to be sweet, to be funny, to be attentive to anyone but his own wife. "I can't believe it. You look amazing."
"Are you kidding? I haven't been out of the house in months. I've been so busy with the baby, I had to cut off all my hair."
"I love it. It suits you. You look great." Beth wants to scream. Or cry. Maybe both. She glances in the rearview mirror. Her eyes are swollen from pushing back tears, her frown lines caked with makeup. But did she look so horrible tonight? The black dress was a little plain, she admits that, especially next to Emily's tight red dress with her bust hanging out. Em was just oozing sexuality, like a fertility goddess. No wonder Jay couldn't take his eyes off her all night. He picked up the tab again, too, even though Peter suggested they split it. He knows the trouble they're in. Does he want to lose the house? The cars? Jay never worries about things like that, of course. His parents always spoiled him, protected him from the realities of life. But it all added up. Stop it. She hates the sound of her own thoughts. The endless complaints are like music scales in her head, the same notes played over and over again, nothing ever changing. It's monotonous. At a red light, she finds herself toying with her necklace, a double strand of Tiffany pearls. They're her prized possession. But they make her want to cry too, because they're a reminder of everything in life she wishes she had but could never seem to get. She remembers hearing a story, a long time ago, about how pearls were made. They were mistakes of nature, really. Accidents. The light turns green and she hits the gas. Suddenly the world is a clash of sirens and flashing lights, a cacophony compared with the music inside the car. She has to slam on the brakes as a police cruiser whizzes through the intersection, then another, barely missing her. She hadn't seen them coming. She'd been too preoccupied, the music too loud. Her heart hammers as the cars disappear into the night. She's embarrassed, trapped in the middle of the intersection as other drivers honk at her trying to get by. She turns down the music and drives on more slowly. She's in no hurry to get home.
Chapter 2. Cassie. Monday night. Cassie stumbles along the sidewalk, dragging a small blue suitcase on wheels and hefting a red duffel bag over her shoulder. Her lungs ache as she pants for air. The night seems like a living thing, all energy and light, as sirens rise and fall in the distance. Janis Joplin's version of Summertime runs through her mind. She was listening to it earlier. That angry, desperate craving for comfort still hums in her ears. Summertime. She hobbles along, her blonde wig swinging, making her scalp tingle and sweat. She looks around the dark street, seeing closed businesses, faded signs, windows boarded up or barred for the night. Where the hell is she? She doesn't know LA well. It makes her even more nervous. God, the bodies. In a nauseating flash, she remembers the sound of gunshots, like hammers banging steel drums. Everything broken. Blood everywhere. Were they all dead? She didn't check. There wasn't time. She had to get out of the house. But where is she going to go? Will the police be searching for her? Could she check into a hotel somewhere? Maybe she should call Beth? Beth still occupies such a special place in Cassie's memory, regal and pale, like the White Queen on a chessboard. Beth owed her. She'd always said that. And she lives in LA now. Is it stupid to think her old friend would help after all these years? She hears barking in the distance and flinches with panic. If the cops have dogs, they could track her anywhere. She has to get into a car so they lose her scent. A cab? But she can't flag a cab in LA. She knows that. And she doesn't have her phone. She's on a busier street now, headlights passing, more shops barricaded for the night. A bus wheezes toward her in the distance. She digs in her purse for change. She doesn't know how much the fare is, but she has to get off the street. She can't risk walking around like this. The bus pulls up, stops in front of her. The door opens and an aging woman gets off, looking tired. But the bus is packed, blank faces staring at her from the windows. With the wig, it would probably be okay. Who'd be able to make the connection, a blonde carrying suitcases on a bus this time of night? But she can't take any chances. The driver stares at her, waiting. She lowers her head and keeps walking. The door closes and the bus wheezes away. There's a 7-Eleven sign glowing in the darkness. A few figures in the parking lot. Young guys, she can tell. She hears their laughter. She takes off her leather jacket and drapes it through the straps of the duffel bag, adjusting her skimpy tank top so the edge of her black lace bra shows. She grabs a cigarette and heads toward them. "Got a light?" she asks in her friendliest lilt. All three turn to look at her. Hispanic kids, early 20s. She sees them all check her out. "Sure thing, beautiful," the tall one says. She knows in an instant he's the leader of the pack. He's the one who takes a step toward her. The others are staring, but fall in behind him. Without saying another word, a real Prince Charming, he pulls out a lighter, sheltering the flame with his hands. She comes over to light the smoke, averting her face from the others, letting the wig fall against her cheek. "Can I talk to you?" She nudges him around the side of the store, away from the bright lights. "Do you have a car?" "Yeah." "Can you take me somewhere?" "Where?" He's getting suspicious. "Just out of here. I'll do whatever you want if you just get me out of here." The guy laughs. He doesn't believe her. "I'm serious." He reaches in his pocket, pulls out his keys. "After you," he says, grinning. He glances at his friends, who huddle together, laughing. "You need a hand with that?" He motions to her luggage. "I'm good, thanks." He leads her to a beat-up tan Ford in the corner of the parking lot. He goes to unlock the trunk, but she says, "I'll just put everything back here." She opens the door, throwing the suitcase into the back seat, but she keeps the red duffel with her when she climbs in the front. The bag is heavy, 20 pounds at least, so she lets half of it spill off her lap onto the seat. But she grips the strap like the rope on a life raft. The kid walks around the car, throwing his friends another wave. She thinks she hears one of them yell something that sounds like a schoolyard taunt. He gets in behind the wheel, the vinyl seat squeaking. "Where do you like to go?" he asks, putting the car into gear and pulling out of the lot. Cassie shoves the snout of her Glock 9mm against his ribs. "Just drive."
Chapter 3. Good. Monday night. The first responders are already on the scene when Detective Francis Good pulls his brown sedan to the curb in Lawrence Heights. His mind is all input now, calm and quiet. The front door is knocked down, the faded stucco chipped, a tiny yard with no grass, a broken front window, the curtain pushed through. No, not a curtain, a blanket, and there's glass on the ground in front. The window's been blown out from the inside. He gets out of the car as more units pull up, brakes screeching. So many flashing lights out here, it reminds him of Christmas Eve. Good is somewhere in his 50s and looks every day of it. 6'1", African-American, 210. He can get around at a crime scene like a man half his age, taking the stairs to the front door 2 at a time. He steps into a dimly lit, run-down living room. There's the sound of crunching glass. Flashlight beams circling like tiny Klieg lights at a movie premiere. A broken lamp on the floor casts eerie shadows. It takes a moment before it all registers. The bodies, the blood. It's a small room with a cheap brown couch on the left, a dining table near the front. A linebacker type in a white tracksuit sits at the table, but his head is down and there's blood oozing from a hole the size of a shot glass in his forehead. A skinny white guy is down by the door. Good has to step over his body to get inside. But where's Butler? Where's... Another big guy crumpled on the floor by the wall. It's him. Curtis Butler. 6 months he'd been working undercover on this case. He had a wife and kids, too. A silhouette steps into sight from the back of the house. All clear, sir, but we got another one down here. Good nods, following a heavy trail of blood into the hallway, where there's another body on the floor, the back of his white t-shirt blooming red from a single gunshot. Good steps around the corpse into a small, shabby bedroom. The mattress is bare, except for a fitted, striped sheet, and the blood trail is gone. He notices a bullet hole in the plywood door before heading back into the hallway. In the kitchen, the counter is scattered with crushed beer cans and a pizza box, a bottle of Windex and rubber gloves. The whole place smells of gun smoke, as if there's been a fire. The screen door is ajar, squeaking in the breeze. He pushes it open, stepping into the night, scouring his flashlight across the backyard. He sees trash cans and plastic lawn chairs, but no movement. Whoever was here is gone now. As he turns back into the house, toward the voices and the crackling radios, he catches a glimpse of the lights spread across the Hollywood Hills. He wonders what the view must be like from up there.
Chapter 4. Beth. Monday night. Beth sits in her car in the driveway. The music has ended, leaving a throbbing silence in her head. Jay's red vintage Mustang gleams in the darkness beside her. She left the restaurant first, so he must have raced all the way home to get here before her. He'd been drinking, and she probably shouldn't have let him drive, but she didn't want to cause a scene at the restaurant. That's what she tells herself anyway, because the alternative is too perverse. Maybe she doesn't even care. The beautiful bungalow was perfectly landscaped, uplights glowing. It's not a big house, only 2 bedrooms, 2 baths, but it's the kind of house any young couple coveted in LA, Jay especially. He always wanted a house in the hills, as if he were already Steven Spielberg or something. Beth thought it would be the perfect place to start a family. She remembers seeing the extra bedroom for the first time, envisioning it full of Pottery Barn pink or blue, with matching curtains and shelves of stuffed animals. Not that they could have afforded to decorate a nursery the way she wanted to right now, but just thinking about it made her happy. At least, it used to. Looking at Emily's baby pictures over dinner was so hard. Trying to smile, when all she wanted to do was cry. I can't believe you picked up the tab again, she says, walking into the kitchen and locking the door behind her. Jay doesn't even look up at her, scrolling on his phone. It was our turn. They paid last time. No, we did. She heads through the living room, a shrine of mid-century antiques, past the elegant wedding pictures in the hall. They mock her with their happiness. She in her off-white gown, Jay in his gray tux, the country club in the background. She'd been happy that day, hadn't she? She looks happy anyway. It's so hard to remember now. 3 years went by fast. In the bedroom, She slips off the black dress and hangs it in the closet. She opens a blue Tiffany's box, unclasps her double strand of pearls, a family heirloom, handling them like rosary beads before curling them into the case. Jay walks into the room without saying a word, heading to the adjoining bathroom. He seems to drag resentment behind him, so defensive all the time. She sees him in the reflection behind her, bending over the sink, brushing his teeth. She feels as if she's aged 10 years in the last few months. And Jay, 5 years older, still seems so young. Clean-shaven, clipped hair. She shudders to think how much he spends on haircuts when she's been trimming and dyeing her hair for a year now. "Fake it till you make it," he always says. "Gotta look the part." He's in such great shape, too. Still a handsome man. And he knows it. That's the problem. But she doesn't want to go down this path again. It'll just make her more depressed. She tries to bring brightness to her voice. "Emily looked good tonight, don't you think?" She walks to the bathroom door and leans against the frame. Even in her bra and slip, she doesn't feel exposed. She doesn't feel like a sexual thing right now. Maybe she never will again. "Emily, she looked good." He wipes his mouth. "She looked okay, I guess." He doesn't meet her eyes in the mirror as he opens the medicine cabinet, grabs his prescription bottle, and takes a pill. She tries a different tack. Can you believe all that baby talk, though? God, how can they sit there and talk about that stuff all night? Because that's what new parents do, Beth. This time he glances at her, irritation in his hazel eyes. She feels the gentle sting of the comment. Still, she knows we're trying to get pregnant. You think she'd try to be a little more... The house phone rings, cutting her off. That's her, calling to brag about the joy of breastfeeding again. She walks over to see it's an unknown caller. Hello? There's a moment of silence, and a dial tone is next. Jay gives her a questioning look as she hangs up. She just shrugs. Wrong number. There's a full-length mirror next to the bed, and she catches her reflection in it. She runs her hand over her flat stomach, sees her small breasts in the bra, her slim legs. Yet, there's nothing sexy about her, is there? There never was. Not like Emily. So full of life. Compared with her, Beth feels like one of those expensive collectible dolls she used to have when she was a little girl, standing inside their boxes in her pink bedroom in Bryn Mawr. Like those dolls, Beth always looked perfect. She even seemed real sometimes, but it was an illusion, because she feels cold, hard, and untouchable. She senses the tug of her melancholy and tries to shake it off again. You think I should get my hair cut short like that? Just for a change? I thought it really suited Em. Jay comes over, his shirt unbuttoned. She sees him loom up in the mirror, and it makes her suck in a breath of fear. Don't even think about it. I like your hair just the way it is. He wraps his arms around her waist and kisses the side of her neck. The look in his eye, the gleam. There's a sudden softness to his mood as he rocks her slightly in his arms. She can smell the stale cologne mixed with toothpaste and liquor. What's wrong with you tonight, anyway? Why are you so self-conscious? Are you really asking me this? They still aren't facing each other, talking only to reflections, but he gives her an innocent shrug. You were ogling her all night, Jay. The flirting, it was embarrassing. For both of us. Beth, come on, I wasn't... But she twists out of his arms and walks into the bathroom, locking the door. She opens the medicine cabinet and sees his Ambien. Every time she notices that bottle, she wonders what would happen if she swallowed them all. 2 hours later, the house phone next to her side of the bed starts ringing. She sees the time, after 3, and gets a chill. It's an emergency. Has to be. Someone is dead. Or in the hospital. One of Jay's parents? He doesn't even stir in bed beside her. God, how she envies him those pills. But as she reaches for the phone, she hesitates. The screen registers another unknown caller. Hello? Silence. A moment later, a man asks, "Is this Beth?" Yes, she answers uncertainly. She doesn't recognize the voice, deep and raspy. Who is this? Is Cassie there? She feels a trail of uncertainty. Who? But the man hangs up. She holds the phone for a moment, staring into the darkness. Did he say Cassie? Couldn't be. It must have been Kathy. That makes more sense. A common name. A wrong number. She glances at the framed photo on the nightstand, barely visible in the dim light. The shot was taken that last day in the Hamptons. The sun bright, the pool off to one side, the big white mansion in the background, the horizon of the pounding Atlantic beyond. She finally lays her head back down on her pillow, but she knows she won't be able to sleep for hours. Cassie? Is it possible? A single phrase comes back to her, one she tries not to think of anymore. You know what you are, Beth? You're a lotus flower. That's just what you are. A lotus flower. She remembers that summer after freshman year, sharing the big yellow bedroom with Cass. How the air was heavy with the scent of brine. The canopy bed brimmed with yellow pillow shams, and the bookshelves were full of old stuffed animals, eyes gleaming like an audience in a darkened theater. They talked about everything that summer. Music and men and mischief. Their plans for life and for the weekend. With her husband sleeping beside her, Beth is transported away from this room, this life. She remembers wandering the corridors of the residence hall years ago, finding her new dorm room with its view of Boston Harbor, empty. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 dressers, a small fridge. She can almost smell the woody scent of the recital rooms downstairs and the fresh paint on the walls. She'd been assigned the bed on the left, piling her bags on the bare mattress. In her freshman orientation package, she'd been given a questionnaire to help new roommates get acquainted. What is your major? Composition? Performance? Theory? Voice? There were silly questions, too, like, what's your favorite band, movie, or book? But the last question was different. It read, I hope my new roommate is, and in the blank, Beth had written, nice. After she unpacked, the other girls on the floor had met their new roommates, but hers still hadn't appeared. She kept busy studying campus maps, putting her books away, deciding what to wear for her first day. As the sun set, there was commotion in the hall. A moment later, Cassie Ogilvy stood framed in the doorway. Wild dark hair, faded jeans. She was laden with knapsacks and gym bags, which she dropped with various thumps. Hey, she said out of breath. She smelled like cigarettes. I'm Cass. I'm Beth. As they shook hands, the girl's wrists, layered with bangles and beads, clattered like pencils in a cup. The first thing she did was crouch next to her knapsack and fill the little fridge with a 6-pack of beer, moving Beth's milk and orange juice out of the way, everything clunking and clanging. Want one? She asked, holding out a can. Beth shook her head. There was a strict no-drinking policy in the dorm, but she decided not to mention it. That was no way to make friends with a new roommate. Over the course of the next hour, she watched Cassie pile rumpled clothes into the dresser and stack jazz CDs on her shelf. She had lots of makeup and hair products, but no alarm clock. She lined up 6 prescription pill bottles on her desk, and Beth wondered what they could be for. The girl almost never stopped talking, a stream of confessions and jokes. Beth felt stilted in comparison. So, what about you? She finally asked. What's your story? Beth handed her the questionnaire. I think I should just give you this. Oh, yeah, I didn't fill mine out yet. She glanced at the page, skimming. She looked up, arching an eyebrow. Nice? Beth shrugged. I would have put cool, she said with a grin. Later that night, they were in their single beds, trying to fall asleep for the first time in a new city. A new life. Crosshairs of shadow from the harvest moon shone through the window. Cassie's voice was quiet in the darkness. Beth, can I ask you a huge favor? Okay. Is it all right if we don't close the door? At night? Beth was confused. Was she afraid of the dark? No, I mean, ever. We can partly close it, just not all the way. None of the girls would be able to see in. It would just be a crack, so it's not completely closed. Would that be okay with you? Do you mind if I ask why? I don't want to dump on you so soon, she said. You'll think I'm nuts. No, I won't, Beth insisted. Cassie, what is it? She was quiet another moment longer. You might not think it's a big deal, but I used to get locked in my bedroom, she finally said. Not just at night. All the time. Whenever I acted up, anyway. I hated it. I felt so trapped, so helpless. So now I just don't like closing doors all the way. That's all. I can't sleep. Oh, Beth shuddered. She preferred doors that not only closed, but locked. Would you mind? She was flooded with remorse for this girl who burst in smelling of cigarettes, full of confessions and laughter. Yet beneath it all was this strange vulnerability. How awful for you, Cass. I'm so sorry. Of course you can leave the door open a bit. Thanks, she said, sounding relieved. She got out of bed and tiptoed across the room. She opened the door not more than an inch. The lights in the hall were dimmed for the night, so it wasn't overly bright, but Beth still saw a thin vertical strand glowing in the darkness. Highlights of Cassie's Gap t-shirt, the profile of her face, the sheen of her legs. Cassie tiptoed back to her bed and climbed under the covers. Thanks, she said again. Good night.
Chapter 5. Good. Tuesday morning. On Ventura Boulevard, Good drives his beat-up brown Chevy through morning rush hour. His gun and a manila file are on the seat beside him. The radio crackles. Unit 9 in pursuit north on Washington, request backup. Stand by for description. He drives past McDonald's, considering. Egg McMuffin, maybe? They say breakfast is the most important meal of the day, so who's he to argue? But the drive-through line is long, so he keeps going. He gives a loud yawn. It had been a late night. The reporters called it the Lawrence Heights bloodbath. It covered the front page. 4 dead. 1 undercover narcotics officer, Curtis Butler, 36, leaves behind a wife and 2 children. Police are searching for a suspect, Richard Bradley Squires, 38. There was an inset photo of Rick Squires, his last mugshot on a drug charge in Wakulla County, Florida. Sandy blonde hair, reaching to the collar of his t-shirt, his jaw clenched, a dead look in his blue eyes. Good went to Butler's house last night to tell his wife the news. He didn't want some uniform she didn't know showing up. When you're the wife of an undercover cop in the gang and narcotics division of the LAPD, and a detective knocks on your door at 3 a.m, you know it's not good news. She was already shaking when she answered. She burst into tears before he even said a word, and covered her ears, backing away, trying to close the door on him, as if she could shut out the news. He had to gently push through. He held her in the hallway for 15 minutes before she could breathe again. The kids woke up and stared at him from the dimness at the top of the stairs. It broke his heart. His chest still ached, thinking about it. The funeral was being planned for Saturday. It would be a big one, line of duty and all, and Butler was well liked. But the flashy honor was little consolation to a young widow with 2 girls to raise on her own. He should try to check in on her before the funeral, just to see if she's okay. She won't be, he knows that, but she'll pretend to be, the way they all will. Good finds a run-down burger joint and pulls up to a battered speaker. The voice crackles, tinny and small, like a harried cartoon character. "Take your order, please?" Good peruses the faded menu. "Fried egg sandwich, side of hash browns. Got any Gatorade?" "No, sir. Sodas, milkshakes, coffee, tea, orange juice," he interrupts. "Make it coffee. Black." "That'll be 837, please. Drive-through." Good inches forward in line, opening the manila file on the steering wheel in front of him. It's full of crime scene photos from the mess in Lawrence Heights. Normally, he feels very little emotion about these kinds of shots, as if he's just wandering through a hardware store, calculating what he needs for a job. Nails, putty, paint. But this is different. It's not just his friendship with Butler. An official task force had been set up to deal with the situation, so the DEA and FBI were involved too. Until recently, the city had managed to avoid a lot of the opioid problems in the rest of the country. But now assholes were coming up from Florida with carloads of high-grade heroin laced with fentanyl. It was a deadly combination, and they were unloading it on the streets of his city. Squires was just another courier in a long string of them. So they set up the task force, called Butler, a young father back from his promotion, into undercover work, just to renew his old connections. They'd find the supplier and put an end to this shit. It was supposed to take a few weeks. That was 6 months ago. Now, 4 men dead, including Butler himself. He doesn't even want to count how many fatal overdoses there have been. And still no dope, no cash, and no Squires. If Good didn't get some answers and put an end to the supply chain soon, there's every chance LAPD would be taken off the case. That's not the worst of it, of course. The worst of it sits in his chest, an ache that won't go away. Not since he held Fiona in that hallway. Saw her tears on his sleeve. Next time, he should bring something for the girls. What were their names? Savannah and... Sasha, that was it. He'll ask Dawes what they might like. She'll know. The drive-through window slides open and the boy hands him a paper bag. "That'll be 8... But he stops when he sees the bloody photos on the steering wheel, the gun on the seat. Good gives him a 10. "You should get Gatorade," he says. He closes his window and drives away.
Chapter 6. Cassie. Tuesday morning. Cassie stands in the marble shower, letting hot water cascade over her skin. Using hotel shampoo, she lathers her long, dark hair, rinsing it under the stream. She knew they'd be looking for a blonde, so she dumped the wig last night. The memories, however, weren't as easy to forget. Rick's lifeless body, drenched with blood. That kid from the 7-Eleven tugging on her as she tried to escape. The sound of gunshots. She closes her eyes, fear lurching with every heartbeat. When is that going to stop? Or the ringing in her ears? Would it ever? She looks at her wet fingers, detecting the tremor still there. Layers of cords and bracelets on her wrists are soaking, but she never takes them off. Not even in the shower. She hears a muffled voice and turns off the faucet. A shadow shifts on the other side of the shower curtain.
"Sorry to barge in on you. The door was open."
"No problem," she says, reaching for a towel. He's at the mirror, smoothing his thinning, fair hair, tucking in his shirt.
"Wow,"
he says with a grin, watching as she dries herself.
"Just wow."
She forces a smile. His name is Matthew. Matt. She'd seen him having breakfast in the hotel restaurant downstairs. Of the several businessmen sitting alone, she singled him out for a few reasons. There was an empty table beside him, he was working on a laptop, and he had a newspaper folded on the table. She was hoping to find someone who'd been drinking with breakfast. Just a beer to show he was bored with life, the way she'd always been. But it was barely 9 in the morning, and there wasn't a soul drinking anything stronger than juice or coffee. She avoided the hostess, who glared at her as she dragged her suitcase and red duffel across the room, sliding into the banquette beside the stranger, bumping him with her knee. "Sorry." "No problem," he smiled, going back to his laptop. She glanced down at his newspaper. Folded the wrong way, she couldn't read it. His gold wedding band glinted on his finger. She wondered if it would help or hinder her plan. The screens above the bar were tuned to a morning newscast. Talking heads, flashy graphics, the weather report. Then a chaotic scene on a street. It was a moment before she figured out what she was seeing. A shot of the rental house, with police cars parked outside, reporters on the sidewalk. Then a mug shot of Rick, staring blankly at the camera. She had to remind herself to breathe, to blink. A young man wearing a black apron came to the table carrying a coffee pot. "Good morning," he said, putting a menu in front of her. "Sorry, I'm not having breakfast." "Coffee?" He motioned with the pot. "No, thanks, just some ice water, please." "Are you waiting for a room?" He was trying to be polite, but he was also a busy waiter during the breakfast rush. According to his badge, his name was Nathan. "I did have a room booked," she began, frustrated. "But I left my overnight bag on the plane. So stupid of me. All my stuff was in there. My wallet, credit cards, my phone. I'm just waiting for them to sort it all out." "Oh, well, I'm very sorry, but if you're not ordering, I'm not allowed to let you have a table." "No?" A helpless little bleat. "I'm afraid not. I'll have to ask you to wait in the lobby." She gave a dejected sigh. "Great," she huffed. "I'm really sorry." "Don't worry about it. It's not your fault." She started getting her things together, hoping, waiting for the stranger to interject. "Excuse me," he began on cue. "I don't mean to pry, but it sounds like you're having a rough time." She laughed tiredly. "Is it that obvious?" "Kind of. Can I buy you a coffee while you wait? Maybe breakfast?" "Are you serious?" she asked, her eyes brimming. She knew her black eyeliner was smeared, but it made her green eyes look even larger. Sometimes she didn't wash it off for days, just applied more. "That's so incredible of you, thank you. You're the first person who's been nice to me since I got here." "My pleasure," he said with a smile. The waiter hovered. "What can I get you?" "Actually, I could really use a drink," she admitted. "Can you drink in LA this time of day?" she asked when she knew damn well that you could. "Of course," said the waiter. "What would you like?" "Maybe a Grey Goose martini." She winced. "A double?" "Right away. Anything for you, sir?" He looked at his watch, glanced at Cassie. "Maybe I'll have a light beer." Excellent. He's game. After the server left, he turned to her. "A double martini this early in the morning? You don't fool around, do you?" "I know, but I just got back from London. My inner clock's all screwed up. It's probably 5 real time for me." "And, actually, I do," she said, her voice teasing. "Fool around, I mean." He frowned at her, not knowing if the double entendre was on purpose. She took off her leather jacket, letting it fall to the bench seat behind her. He couldn't help himself. His gaze darted down to her skimpy tank top, then quickly away. Even when she was young, her teachers worried about how quickly she'd developed. Precocious, they'd called her. Mature for her age. It was part of the problem. Over the years, Cassie had learned this particular problem was a secret power she had over men. Whole conversations took place in an instant. Dating, sex, marriage, divorce, and everything in between. When the drinks came, she made small talk, flirting, laughing, reaching out to touch him, working her way down a familiar path. Her footing wasn't as sure as it once was, and sometimes she thought she'd said the wrong thing. Even so, within the hour they were in his suite on the 9th floor. The martinis helped smear the memories away, let her mind be numb and her limbs drift across his body, over the sheets. It felt odd to be with someone other than Rick. He was always so rough, and he had so many tattoos that sometimes his biceps reminded Cassie of pythons coiling around her in the night. But this man had been so gentle, his pale arms like those of a nervous little boy's. Somehow a total stranger felt more loving than someone she'd been with for almost 2 years. As she puts on a hotel robe, she tries to seem casual, glancing at the red duffel bag on the floor. Girl stuff, she'd told him, but she couldn't take a chance he'd look inside.
"The laptop's on the desk,"
he says, doing his tie.
"The Wi-Fi code is just the hotel name."
Thanks. I appreciate it. There are large mirrors on almost every wall, making the scene seem endless and unreal, the two of them just actors on a stage. Such a hassle losing my wallet. I have to cancel my cards, call the passport office. I should get in touch with my family, too. They'll be worried.
No kidding. Use the phone, whatever you need, okay?
He goes to leave, but hangs back.
Am I supposed to give you any money?
She widens her eyes. Of course not. Please don't think that.
I'm sorry, that's not what I meant, but you lost your wallet, so maybe you need a little cash or something.
I just needed a break.
Oh, good.
He exhales in relief.
I didn't know for sure. I've never done this before.
Me neither, she lies.
No?
He seems hopeful.
I'm here for the rest of the week. I've got to file this big appeal by Friday.
He already told her he was some kind of consultant, and she tries to act interested when all she wants him to do is leave.
I can't get away during the day, but you can stay here as long as you want. Maybe we could go to dinner tonight?
I'd love that. Thank you. She steps toward him, straightening his tie. You're a real knight in shining armor. You know that? His skin reddens and he stammers,
Just help yourself to whatever, okay? The bar, room service, it's all on an expense account. I should be finished around 6 or 6:30. We can decide where to eat then.
He glances at his watch.
I hate to leave you alone, but I have to go.
No problem. I'll be waiting.
See you soon.
He points at her, eyes narrowed.
Kathy, right?
Kathy, she says with a smile.
Chapter 7. Rick. Monday night. Rick Squires is in his late 30s, with straggly fair hair, a thin beard, and blue eyes. The nails on his pinky fingers are long and yellowed, his muscular arms covered in tattoos, more ink than skin showing. He sits on the sagging brown couch, the cash counter on the coffee table in front of him. A gray blanket hangs over the curtain rod, doubling the thickness of the drapes, blocking the house from prying eyes. He has enough people watching him in this room already. At a cheap dining table across from him is a man he knows only as Jules. Jules wears a white Adidas jogging suit, but judging from the size of him, he hasn't jogged a day in his life. He weighs kilos on a small scale he brought with him. He didn't trust the one Rick had. They never do. A small black road case sits open on the floor, the corners reinforced with metal. The case has a false bottom and is packed with heat, a powerful combination of heroin and fentanyl from the Florida Keys. Using a banned road case to transport the stuff had been Cassie's idea. "Nobody's gonna stop us," she'd said, smiling. "We're just a band on tour." Behind Jules stands a second big black guy with a goatee, holding a gun at his side. Another sidekick, 300 pounds if an ounce, watches Rick like a prison guard. Bobby, the skinny white kid who drove up with him and Cassie, is at the front door, facing the room, trying to look as intimidating as he can. Everyone either holds a gun or is within reach of one. Except for the soft tap of the scale and the whoosh of the cash counter, the room is silent. There's no music, no talking. Rick unwraps an elastic from a roll of bills and inserts the cash into the hopper. The hissing and the clicking begin. A red duffel bag, full of similar rolls of $100 bills, sits on the floor beside him. His heart beats almost as fast as the money in the counter. $12,100, $38,700, $95,300. The numbers on the LCD screen escalate silently. He wonders how long it will take to count this much cash. Then he hears a faint clatter from the bedroom down the hall. Jules freezes. "Somebody back there?" "Nobody," Rick says. But Bobby tenses up, his gaze darting toward the hallway. One of the sidekicks leaves his spot and heads out of the room. "I said nobody's there." But the guy keeps walking down the hall, the floor squeaking with each step. "Stay down, Cassie. Stay down or you'll get us all killed." Then, a shot explodes, so close Rick's ears ring, and the guy in the hall tumbles to the floor. Rick sees Bobby's arms extended, the gun smoking in his trembling hands. Fuck! He must have been trying to protect Cass. There's an instant of nothingness when everyone looks around. Then, things drag into slow motion. More shots explode, so loud and sudden, Rick feels his bones rattle. It seems to take him 30 seconds to grab his gun, and it's just on the coffee table in front of him. Another minute watching bullets travel across the room, furniture splintering, mirrors shattering, blood spraying. The gunshots just won't stop. But then, the weight of a brick hits his shoulder, and he flies back, the noises starting to fade.
Chapter 8. Beth. Tuesday morning. Beth gets off the elevator at the Steinberg Academy in downtown LA. The long halls are a din of piano scales and violin solos behind closed doors. She walks quickly, already late for her first student. She didn't even have time to stop for a coffee. She had trouble sleeping last night, and she woke up in a bad mood. Again. Every day she keeps thinking she's going to open her eyes in the morning and things will be different. But like the weather in LA, so unlike the seasons back home, nothing ever changes. It's just more of the same, the same, the same. She tries to tell herself that things are getting better, that she is getting better, that it won't be long now, and she'll be her old self again. But she can't even remember who her old self was. Maybe she's just tense about dinner tonight. That'll be 2 nights of socializing in a row, and getting together with her in-laws is always trying. She's still upset about Emily, too. She didn't even wake Jay this morning, tiptoeing around so she wouldn't have to talk to him. Why is it still bothering her so much? Maybe she's just tired. She hadn't been able to sleep after that strange call last night. Cassie isn't a common name. It seemed such an odd coincidence. She tries to reassure herself it was just a wrong number. Had to be. But then, why did he know her name? Is this Beth? It makes no sense. It fills her with dread, a minor key running beneath her thoughts. She steps into her small, stale music room, horrified to see a well-dressed woman and her little girl waiting by the piano. The receptionist must have let them in. The girl's a new student, too, with a helicopter mom who wants to sit in on the lessons. The woman glares at her with such derision, Beth feels a shiver run down her spine. I'm so sorry I'm late. Traffic was insane. She puts down her purse, a cheap knockoff, but passable, still sputtering apologies. Her cheeks are warm with a mix of shame and anger. I hope you didn't have to wait long, she says, her heels clicking on the polished wood floor as she hurries to the piano. 10 minutes is long enough, the woman complains. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Beth tries to smile, but just feels her cheeks aching. Are you ready, Amy? She's been practicing scales, says the mother, who sits straight-backed in a chair, a flashy Gucci bag clutched on her knees like a lapdog. Nothing else to do while we waited. Beth forces another smile, but she can't apologize anymore, can she? She'll lose credibility, respect. She sits down on the piano bench next to the young girl, opens the sheet music in front of them, and turns on the metronome, setting it on the floor at their feet. The metronome clicks, 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 like a mechanical heartbeat. All right, in 1, 2. Within seconds, the girl's hands are whirling across the keyboard of the Mason and Hamlin. She can't be more than 8 or 9, but she's playing Tchaikovsky like it was chopsticks. The metronome beats steadily on the floor, goose-stepping straight toward her, getting louder, closer. She has impossible talent. Where did that kind of skill come from? Not in a little girl. It seems miraculous, almost magical. The tension starts to build in her throat, the heat behind her eyes, such a familiar sensation lately, wanting to burst into tears. But instead of bawling, she just nods to the music, occasionally smiles at the mother, trying to seem relaxed and professional. But that kind of talent? In a child? It's just so unfair. So damned unfair. I'm wasting my life. Isn't she? It had all been such a stupid waste. As she sits there, listening to this prodigy, she remembers watching Amadeus in an elective class in college, Musical Drama 101, a bird course where they did breathing exercises and studied almost every musical from Flashdance to Singin' in the Rain. But it was Amadeus that stuck with her. She'd felt so resentful of Mozart's brash genius and such a bond with the pathetic, envious Salieri. How he raged at God for giving him the desire to compose brilliant music, but then denied him the talent to do so. Beth used to ask herself the same thing every day, but now she just wants to forget her dreams and her failures. Now she just wants out.
Chapter 9. Jay. Tuesday morning. In the Hollywood Hills, Jay is out for his morning run, working up a sweat, helping to shake off his hangover. Around him, the rooftops of lavish homes peek through treetops and over walls, everything greenery, blue sky, and sunshine, not a hint of smoke or smog in the air. A perfect summer day. But all he hears is a cash register. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. The cars, the landscaping, the curb appeal. He likes to keep up appearances, too, but they can only afford the minimum right now, and he resents it. Don't wallow, he tells himself. Squeezes his eyes closed, says his little mantra. It's going to work out. It's a brilliant film. You're a brilliant producer. This is the one. Camiso is going to pull through. Just relax. Jay can feel it's going to happen this time, like he's never felt anything before. He can picture it. If you can dream it. A gleaming Mercedes drives by with a silver-haired man wearing a golf shirt behind the wheel. It reminds him of his father, off to another day on the links. If the deal fell through, he could always ask his parents for another loan, couldn't he? Ka-ching, ka-ching. It isn't going to fall through. He sees two young women, a blonde and a brunette, turn the bend ahead of him. He passes them almost every morning, timing his own jog to bump into them somewhere along the route. Barely dressed, ponytails, and everything else bobbing. It's one of the perks of living in a neighborhood like this. Lots of models, actresses, and trophy wives skipping about. He lifts his chest and sucks in his abs. "Morning, ladies," he grins as he passes them, tipping his black baseball cap. "Hi there," says the blonde. She's the only one who actually talks to him, but the other one always smiles. They both seem friendly, so happy and carefree. He twists around and jogs backward, watching them bounce away. Real benefit to jogging backward. The rear view. "Have a nice day," he calls. They lean into each other and giggle coquettishly, but don't stop running. They turn the corner, out of sight, and he twists forward again, pumped and energized. Flirting. Big deal. It meant nothing. Why did Beth have to get so pissed off about it last night? Did she have any idea what he'd been like before they met? Hound dog. That's what they'd called him at Princeton. And now they hadn't had sex in 3 months, at least. The doctor said that might happen, but still. He has needs. Big deal if he ogles the neighbors a bit. Had she really used that word? Ogling? She's always been such a snob. All that Philadelphia mainline breeding bullshit. Jay's parents had money, lots of it, but they'd always drilled it into his head that the worst thing you could be was a snob. It was crass. Beth's parents, judging from the pictures, the stories, that big summer house on the ocean, had been the exact opposite. Waspy snobs who looked down their noses at everyone. What phonies. They didn't have a penny when they died. Beth had to sell everything to settle their debts. She always complains about how irresponsible he is with money, but what about them? He and Beth wouldn't even be in this situation if her own parents had a little more common sense. He's glad he never had a chance to meet them. He probably would have hated them. Ogling. God, how can she be so critical all the time? So what if he was a flirt? It was harmless.
Chapter 10. Cassie. Tuesday morning. Cassie stands in the bathroom, hearing the clicks of his briefcase and 4 little beeps from the hotel room safe. She wonders what he's trying to hide from her. But then her focus splits and she sees his gold razor sitting on the sink, glinting like a watch in a jewelry store. She picks it up, feels its substantial weight, sets it down again.
"See you later,"
he calls. "Can't wait." As soon as she hears the hotel room door lock, she runs into the main room, hurries to the desk for the newspaper. She's aware of the closed door in the corner, but it's not unbearable. Doors leading to sunlight and fresh air, or doors in public places, like the one in the hotel room, they're fine. But doors that open onto corridors, private hallways, dim spaces make her breathe faster. The fear isn't as bad as it used to be, but she's still aware of that door. In the instant she glanced at it, a mental picture snapped. 4 panels, brushed metal hardware, emergency exit information in a laminated frame. The story made the front page. Bloodbath in Lawrence Heights. 4 dead. Robert Hackett, 28. Bobby was dead. She could tell that when she left the house. Poor kid. Julian Jules Williams, 34. Arkell Mitchell, 29. Curtis Butler, 36, an undercover officer with the LAPD. One of them was a narc? They killed a cop? Good God. If the police could connect her to the scene, they'd never stop looking for her. She may need more than a week to hide out. She may be running for the rest of her life. She grabs her purse, takes out a cigarette, and lights one with trembling hands, throwing the lighter down, pacing the room. It was supposed to be easy. That's what Rick said. After it went down, they'd deliver a portion of the money back to Miami, then leave the country and hit a beach somewhere. Cassie loved to lie in the sun. It was another addiction of hers, easy and pleasurable, as the best highs were.